powerful film. It's a pleasure to introduce the writer-director, very talented, Sara Colangelo.
Thank you, Trevor. Wow, what a crowd. This is really incredible. I want to thank all of you for being here today. There are many people to thank, and I'll try to be brief. I have a cheat sheet here. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the Sundance Film Festival, Trevor, Cooper, and all of the programmers. Second time around, it is just as big an honor to be here in the competition lineup and to be showcasing a film made completely by women and showcasing what is, I hope, a really complicated and challenging and riveting lead female character. So thank you for that. Thank you, as always, to the Institute for your continued support. You guys are really the reason I'm here in the first place, and I always remember that. Thank you also to my wonderful and collaborative producers, all women, Talia, Kleinhendler, Osnat-Keren, Celine, Rattray, and Trudie Styler's amazing. You guys are incredible. I gave birth actually a few months before we went into production, and none of you guys batted an eye, and none of you said that I couldn't do this, and it was really empowering, and thank you. It was just really incredible to have that level of support and that level of enthusiasm when you're going through the process of motherhood and having a tiny infant, so thank you. Thank you also to my other creative partners, Pepe, Mary, Vanessa, Nick and Jenny, thank you, Jed, Lee and Mark, and thank you to all of the investors. We can't do this without you, so thank you. Thank you to Nadav Lapid for letting me adapt your beautiful story and make it my own. They're so gracious of you. Thank you to my husband for taking care of our infant son. And lastly, thank you to Maggie Gyllenhaal, who was in every scene of the movie and has just been a wonderful creative partner through all of this. You kept me inspired every day, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate every ounce of love and dedication that you put into this. We'll all be up here after the show to answer all of your questions, and I hope you enjoy. Producers, I think you should come up, and Pepe, Mary, Vanessa, Mark, if you're out there, come on up. Is Pepe here?
I think so. In the meantime, would you mind introducing this to everybody?
I'm Sara, writer-director. This is Parker, who started the film. It's Jimmy. I'm Carter.
I'm Maggie.
I'm Rosa.
Talia.
I'm Osnat.
Celine. And that's it.
I'm Pepe.
Mary.
Ajay. Samrat.
The question for Maggie, what most attracted you to the script?
Well, I think Sara, who directed it but also wrote it, is a brilliant writer, and I had that feeling when I read the script, like I've had really honestly only a few times in my life where I felt like something was asking to be expressed that linked up with what I needed to express. And I think it has something to do with, look, I think as women, we don't see that many movies out there that express our experience, and we get really good at fitting ourselves into what we got. And when I see one where there's an opportunity to really express everything, it's a rare gift, and I just I was compelled immediately. Well, I'll say what I think, obviously it's up to you. I think she's not like fundamentally mad. I think she's a woman, an artist with a mind who's not being fed anything. And nobody's listening to her work. And she doesn't have any real kind of human connection in her life. And I think she's being driven crazy by the insanity of the culture and the time she lives in, which happens to be the same culture and time that she lives in.
You might want to answer that
I think when I was writing it, it was important for me not to pathologize Lisa. I think, she is someone who is sort of getting trampled on and not listened to and ignored. And she's sort of projecting her own artistic aspirations onto this child who is clearly extraordinary as well. And she is trying to cultivate his talent and going obviously to ridiculous ends to do so and crossing so many kind of sacred boundaries. But it was really important to me that we feel like we could all be her in a certain sense. Like we've all had work that hasn't been heard or understood, and I think we've all been there. And I think for me, so much of this piece is about authorship. It's about who gets to say what art is, who gets to praise, lavish praise onto whom. All of these things I hope are layered into it as much as they're about the journey of this one particular woman. So I think for me the story sort of floats in this sort of allegory as well. And it was for me not a portrait of a woman going mad so much as a woman kind of spiraling out of control because she's just as you said, misunderstood and not being fed. And ultimately for me it's like a portrait of a woman kind of awakening to life through this child and through his art.
Can I say something about that? Because I have a voice too. When I read it, I felt like she was living like a poet, but she's mad because of the circumstances around her. A lot of times you have these male figures in history and they did all these crazy things, they go prophecy. But they were poets because, for whatever reason. And I thought that she was living like a poet, but got caught. So that was my take on it.
I mean, that may be true. I mean, you also have to learn X and Y before you can write poetry. But I totally hear you. That makes a lot of sense. I think, maybe more to the point in this case is ideally, whoever your teacher is, whoever your mother is, your father, the grown-ups in your life when you're a kid, are supposed to be feeding you. And in this case, this woman is so hungry that she starts to suck off of this child. And I think that's more to the point here. I mean, it's true. I think so many children have fascinating, incredibly interesting things to say and to do. But the problem here is that it's going in the wrong direction.
How did you keep the children focused to work with them?
It was definitely challenging at moments. We had 15 children between the ages of 5 and 7 in a contained space. That we were shooting in a public school in Brooklyn, and sometimes the AC wasn't working, and we had to bring in ACs and fans, and the nap scene was particularly difficult. We probably did 7 or 8 takes, and you always see a head popping up and someone saying I'm really hot in here. So it was trying. But I think Maggie and I discussed this at length before shooting. We really wanted to have a minimal camera presence. Or feeling of a camera presence in the classroom, and we wanted Maggie to really feel like she was just kind of going through activities and teaching class. And for the most part, the kids did not know she was an actor, called her Mrs. Spinelli, and we just kind of hid in the corners, and Pepe, you can probably talk a little more about that too. But that was kind of what we felt that actually we were getting the best performances out of the kids and Maggie that way. And the kids were a lot more focused when they were just kind of doing these activities. So that's how we took it day to day. I don't know, Pepe, do you want to talk to that?
Oh yeah, it was pretty much that. I was hiding in the corner, not doing anything. and we didn't have any lights in the classroom, so it was just a class basically, like just capturing what Maggie was doing and what the kids were, the mess that they were making and the fun they were having. That's it.
I hate to interpret my own work. I don't know, I'd like to think so. I mean, I don't know what feminine filmmaking is. I can't put my finger on it exactly. I know it when I see it, and I feel it with a lot of female filmmakers that I like. I hope so. I tried to put a certain amount of lyricism in there because I wanted it to feel a little bit like a poem, and I wanted some of the sensuality of when they're like smelling herbs and all of these little moments. I felt that was so integral to poetry as well, and to what Lisa is trying to give to all of the children in the class. So I hope so. Maggie, if you want to speak to that or
something. Yeah. Something that I felt like was at least addressing something incredibly feminine in the script was, I think we're incredibly hard on women about their interactions with children, and they're held to a different standard. So I think there's something that we perceive as especially perverse about her relationship with him. Whereas I think if the story were about a man, we would read more of a teacher and prodigy dynamic, but because it's a woman and it's not his mother, I think society is set up in such a way that we instinctually feel like something is going on that isn't right. And I thought Sarah and Maggie realized that really beautifully.
I'd like to ask the two youngest gentlemen what their favorite part of filming was and why.
My favorite part of filming was that I got to have a lot of fun and meet new people. My favorite part of filming was similar. And it was just fun.
Well, it was interesting. I was pregnant while in development and while writing like the last drafts of the script, and I think I was like thinking a lot about how much pressure do you put on a child, what that dynamic is, what is healthy. We all, I feel like as parents, I can say this now, even though my son is barely a year. You are definitely projecting something even when you're not wanting to, and even when you're absolutely careful, because you're kind of wanting to give them the best experience. But you can't help but kind of live through them a little bit. And that was definitely something that was floating in my head. I don't think it's the core of the script, but it's there as like a theme, I think, bubbling underneath. But it was also wonderful to maybe have gone through the process of having a kid. It changes your perspective, and having a family and having a baby when you're making a film. It sets your priorities straight sometimes, and it takes a little bit of, I was a little more relaxed. I kind of, had fun kind of watching the actors and letting myself see where they would take me sometimes. And I don't know if that was kind of the motherhood in my veins or what, but I definitely felt it this time around as opposed to with my first feature a little bit more. So
Thank you so much to the whole team for being here. It's really nice to have you.
thank you.